Bienvenidos a CHIRLA TV, soy Pedro Trujillo, estoy aquí con mis compañeras, colegas, luchadoras, inspiradoras, lo que sea, ¿no? Que tenemos aquí a Arely Hernández que nos está acompañando y también tenemos a Fátima Flores. Arely, have you been here before? This is your first time.
This is my first time.
Oh, we gotta give you like a red carpet here. Welcome, welcome. What took us so long? You know, I gotta talk to my director and my producer right here. You know, what took us so long to bring you here? Please tell us your title and a little bit about yourself.
My name is Arely Hernández. I'm currently executive administrator at CHIRLA. I work in the executive office, and I have been at CHIRLA 12 years. This summer will be my 12th year. So a really interesting journey. I worked in every department at CHIRLA. So I know a little bit about every team, and I love my job. I enjoy my job. I get to be part of a place that has been a big impact in my life. I'm the first generation of AB 540 students, and I'm a DACA beneficiary, two of the big things that CHIRLA has fought for. So I get to work in the place that makes my life possible today.
Vamos equipo. And for those of you who are tuning in from other states and don't know what AB 540 is, it's the in-state tuition bill that was passed here in California so that immigrant youth who were going on to college, from high school to college, are able to pay resident fees as opposed to paying international fees. So thank you, Arely, and thank you for joining us. And you have so much knowledge, institutional knowledge, as well as knowledge around the fights, the movement of immigrant rights. So we're happy that you're joining us today and you could join us. Yep. And también tenemos aquí a Fátima, también compañera aquí, luchona, that we've had a few times in the show. She loves all these titles, as you can see. But welcome back, Fátima. How was your trip to Sacramento?
I actually did not go to Sacramento.
We were talking about Sacramento as like you were
yes,
there.
I know. I was there in spirit. I was there in spirit. Yes.
No, I feel it. I feel it.
In spirit and sending the pictures.
Yes, and sending the pictures. I actually stayed back. We're running some of our campaign work. So.
Yeah, that's right. For the elections.
Yeah.
Sí, ya estamos in crunch time. So, welcome again to the show. Today, for those of you who are joining us first time, we're talking about always talking about immigrant rights and how it. Things that impact immigrants, but we're talking about DACA. We have an update around DACA. We want to update you all and have you all along this journey with us around the DACA program. So, Fátima, if you could take us away as to just what DACA is first and foremost.
Yeah, of course. Just to set the record straight, there's always a lot, especially in politically charged seasons, what DACA is and isn't, right? So just to set the record straight, I think it's important to mention that DACA is an executive order, right? This was something that happened under the Obama administration in 2012. So what DACA does is it provides the beneficiaries a social security number and a work permit that is renewable every 2 years based on depending on if you have any kind of misdemeanors, right? So you have to apply every year and a half, really. And then you get your permit again for 2 years, and then you start the process and the cycle all over. So that's what DACA is. It allows us the ability to go to work, to go to school, to access driver's licenses, and most importantly, to really begin to live up to our potential, but there's a lot of snags and we're coming up on the 10-year anniversary of when DACA was announced, and then in August when people were actually able to apply. So that's the record, right? DACA does not provide any permanent protections. Unfortunately, we've been fighting that fight for the past 30 plus years with the DREAM Act. So I think it's important to demystify, right, the narrative of what DACA is and what it is not.
Thank you for that. And Arely, we're beyond the point of DACA being a temporary program, because that was the original intent. That's how it was mentioned and framed, because I remember the Obama administration saying that this was going to be something that Congress would address, right? And so if you can bring us back to 10 years ago, what brought the program forward at that point?
Yeah, and really we have to go back more than 20 years ago. More than 20 years ago, the DREAM Act came about. We fought for so many years for the DREAM Act. When I first started volunteering at CHIRLA, it was in the call center, and it was actually for the DREAM Act. We were making calls to have people support the DREAM Act. So in 2010, under the Obama presidency, the DREAM Act came up for vote, and it did not have enough votes in Congress to pass. It was completely heartbreaking. A couple of days before Christmas, I remember it was a Saturday morning when the vote happened, and we didn't have enough votes, and back then. So the DREAM Act failed. It's really important to remember that this happened under Obama, but we were not given DACA. We fought for DACA in the streets. People were out in the streets demanding change. There was civil disobedience. There were people traveling throughout the nation to offices saying, we want change. And that's how change came about. It was not given to us. We fought for it. We fought for DACA. So then after a lot of pressure, President Obama finally came out and said, okay, this is what I can do for you. And he issued DACA, which said, you know, if you came before this certain date and you're under this age, you can apply. And people were skeptical because what it meant is you can apply, but you're also turning yourself in to immigration. You're giving them all your information. Up to this point, everybody was unknown, right? We were here, but they didn't know we were here to a certain degree. But it meant, hey, you got to turn yourself in for that work permit and that protection from deportation, which many of us did, like myself. What that meant was that we got a Social Security card. And with your Social Security card in California, like many other states, it meant you could get a driver's license. It meant you could get a credit card. You could open a bank account. So the world opened up, right? Everything changed, but we were always under the guise. And if you hear President Obama's speech when he announced DACA, he said, this is temporary, for we are waiting for Congress to act. But here we are 10 years later, still waiting for Congress to act.
And with that, we'll be right back with more CHIRLA TV to tackle this further. Bienvenidos a CHIRLA TV, que estamos platicando sobre DACA y los años cuando empezamos a aplicar a DACA. Fátima, ¿qué es lo que estabas pensando? ¿Qué decía tu familia cuando este programa se anunció? Y pues, ¿qué estabas haciendo? Me imagino que todavía te acuerdas ese día.
Cuando se salió el anuncio de DACA, yo tenía, apenas iba a cumplir 21 años, ¿verdad? Ahora ya tengo 31 años. Y me acuerdo viendo a mi mamá y las dos como que, wait, ¿de verdad? Como había mencionado Arely, teníamos mucha ansiedad. We were skeptical. We didn't know what was going to happen. Pero queríamos la esperanza, ¿verdad? De que algo se iba a hacer. Entonces, al principio, yo también quería saber más información que iba a salir de afuera del Departamento de Seguridad. Y ya cuando leímos sobre lo que estaba pasando, es el momento que yo tuve que tener una conversación con yo misma, ¿verdad? Am I ready to come out of the shadows? Am I ready to present my narrative and my story? Because in the state where I grew up in Nebraska, it was always white cis men that were telling my narrative, that were sharing my story. And I was tired of it because I know who I am. I know who my family is. I know that what we've done and the contributions that we make. And that was the moment for me where I was enlightened. I said, yes, I'm ready to empower myself to reclaim, you know, the story that they're taking and spinning and making theirs and set the record straight on who I am. So I actually came out undocumented and about DACA on a news story back home. And my friends and my family were like, Fati, and I'm like, it's now or never. I've been preparing for this 21 years. I'm ready to fight. I'm ready to set the record straight, but more than anything, to reclaim my power and seek the liberation that I so deserve. And then haven't looked back since. Ever since then, have been following what's happening with DACA, but also what goes beyond this, right? Because we're only one segment of the undocumented struggle. There are so many other people that are impacted, and why we are here today, right? Continuing to fight for not only ourselves, but our families and our communities that haven't had the chance to come out of the shadows fully.
Yeah, talk about putting yourself on the map. You know?
Yeah. Like, here we go. It was literally like a clip. Vamos, you know, like, como dice mamá, no te rajes, hija. Go for it.
I like that saying. My experience is a little bit different. Sorry, are we doing English or Spanish?
Como gustes.
Okay. My experience was a little bit different because I'm of a different age bracket. So as we're sitting here today, I'm 38. So I come from a different generation. I lived many years without documents, being undocumented. So to me, when I heard about DACA, it was like, great, this is going to be great, but where's the DREAM Act? Because I was very clear that this is temporary. So I was driving to downtown LA, and a friend called me and said, did you hear what President Obama just announced? And I said, no. What happened? And I was driving to an action because we were having an action that day, if you remember. I was driving down to an action and I had to pull over, and I said, what happened? And she said, he just announced a program that I think benefits you. And I was like, what is the program? And she said, I don't know, but like, look for it on the news or something. And I was like, okay. So in that moment, I called the office and I spoke to one of our referral specialists and I said, hey, what's happening? She said, the president just announced something and our office is flooded. So instead of going to the action, I go to the office and I drive in and there's people everywhere. The phones are ringing like consistently going, what is this information? What's happening? And that's when it hit me like, oh, something's really happening. What's happening? I didn't understand it. It was such a long day. It took us a while to figure it out. And then when we started hearing what it might be, it just became a lot more real. Like, okay, he's actually doing something. Okay, what is it? And then there was a little bit of heartbreak because right away we heard, oh, there's age caps and there's limitations to it. And yeah, I think that was the heartbreaking piece to know that there were so many age caps. And what people don't realize about DACA is that at the time that it was announced, you had to be 32. But the people that had fought for DACA and for the DREAM Act were over that age already.
You had to be 32 or younger, right? Yeah, and I recall similar sentiment I recall that march as well. That's why I said, like, where were you? Because it was for us who benefit from the program. I was a DACA recipient when it first came out as well. And I remember being at that march. I remember asking myself when they told us the criteria, how am I going to prove that I was here June 15? You know, and I remember that I had just paid a ticket at the Superior Court for a traffic violation like 2 days ago. So I'm like, oh, I'm good. But at the same time, am I good? You know, like, because driving without a license. So that thought came across. I remember vividly that thought coming across. It's like that feeling of hope, but also fear of like the unknown and fear that you're going to be put in a microscope as an immigrant, you know, and everything you've done or haven't done is going to be looked at so closely by a government that doesn't know me, you know, or doesn't know us. And I also feel that what you said about people who could be left out. A couple of my closest friends, really close friends, were immediately like not going to qualify at all. And so that was the heartbreak as well. It's like, how can you celebrate something when your people that are closest to you are going to be left out, you know? And that was the case again and again in multiple other efforts that didn't go through in the end. DAPA, for example, Deferred Action for Childhood, was expanded version. Those things, we experienced those things where people were getting left out. But estamos aquí reflexionando sobre los 10 años de DACA, and this is, you know, we're in our fields here, but we'll be right back to talk a little bit more about what's coming up. Welcome back to CHIRLA TV. We're tackling the 10-year anniversary of DACA and where it was at the moment. So I want us to start talking now about some of the implications of what the messaging was then, which was young people are getting legalized, we're going to get some type of status, right? That was the media messaging, to how it's now, right? Like, what is it? Are we stuck? Where are we in terms of like how we are perceived, DACA? And I keep saying I'm no longer DACA. So how are DACA folks perceived, right?
Yeah. I think we go back to that word dreamer. That's a word that has been used. And in Spanish, we say it too, los dreamers. Pero es una palabra divisiva, porque los estudiantes tuvieron atención porque tuvieron el tiempo y sus padres trabajaron para poder mandarlos. En esencia, ¿qué es un dreamer? Alguien que vino joven y creció aquí. ¿Qué no nuestros padres son esos dreamers también? Pero por los medios se usó la palabra and the word was misused to create a good immigrant, excellent immigrant, and not so excellent immigrant. Some would even say the bad immigrant. And it's damaging us today because we have 11 million people that need relief. And when we go to DC, we were in DC in December, we talk to people and they say, I'm for legalizing the dreamers, but not their parents. Yep. And that's the damage that creating that narrative has caused.
The real impact, right, that you see it carried across to now the legislators who are the ones that decide. And Fatima, your thoughts on this?
No, I agree wholeheartedly with Areli. It's also having a real conversation about accessibility, right? And the privilege that we get with applying that our cohorts, you know, friends, loved ones that haven't been able to, and again, under the guise of this message in the narrative that mainstream media has portrayed us under, right? Because now we also have to commit to that, right? Like I remember people were like, you're the poster child of DACA. And I'm like, I don't want to be the poster child, right? I'm here to share my voice and my power for all of us. Not all of us have the ability to go to school, right? Not all of us have the opportunity to have access to different professions. People have families. street vendors. We work hard, right? So this message and the narrative should be about all of us, not just some of us.
Y para retar a las personas que todavía siguen con esta idea que cuando piensan de DACAs o piensan de los soñadores que son jóvenes, sí existen personas jóvenes que son inmigrantes indocumentados todavía y muchos que todavía ni calificaron al programa DACA, pero solo para abrirnos los ojos, el promedio de edad de los que tienen DACA, que entraron al programa, es de 32 años, ¿no? Entonces imagínense, 32 años, llamarían a una persona joven, bueno, el que tiene 32 sí, ¿no?
Claro, claro. Yo me
pero,
uso de ejemplo. Yo tengo DACA y tengo 38.
Pero también a lo que voy es de que el gobierno no nos va a ver, si entráramos así solamente por edad, no nos ve, ya para muchos de nosotros no íbamos a calificar también para el programa DACA si es que se anunciara hoy en día, porque no nos ven. Pero todavía nos siguen diciendo de los dreamers o DACA como si todos son jóvenes, ¿no? Bueno, ¿por qué estamos platicando del programa DACA? ¿Qué es lo que está ocurriendo en Texas?
En Texas ahorita estamos batallando otro caso de parte del Judge Hannon, ¿verdad? Él ha estado batallando el programa desde que se creó y estamos de nuevo en la Cortes, ¿verdad? Entonces van a salir más noticias este año sobre si DACA de nuevo va a llegar a la Corte Suprema, ¿verdad? Entonces llegamos a la misma conclusión que ya estamos más allá de que DACA sea temporario, ¿verdad? Estamos en el Congreso haciendo tanto para asegurar que algo permanente se haga y no se está haciendo. Y de nuevo estamos en las Cortes, ¿verdad? Batallando nuestra identidad y el seguir estar aquí en el país. Entonces, por eso la lucha no ha terminado. Tenemos que seguir presionando a nuestros representantes y especialmente en los años electivos. Es importante que no nos demos de cansados, ¿verdad? Hay que seguir luchando y asegurando que ya para a esto, ¿verdad? Asegurar que tengamos the Dream Act, que pasemos no solamente para nosotros, pero también a nuestras familias y nuestras comunidades indocumentadas.
Muchas gracias por eso. Regresamos.
¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos?
Estamos otra vez aquí en CHIRLA TV platicando sobre el aniversario número 10 de DACA. Platícanos, estamos aquí preocupados de este anuncio que puede ocurrir tal vez en las cortes. Pues, Arely, what's your concern?
La preocupación es que ya hemos ido a la Corte Suprema antes. Muchos se preguntan, ¿cómo es que estamos aquí otra vez? Hay tantos casos en contra de DACA que por eso es que estamos aquí otra vez. En el 2019 estuvimos en la Corte, yo pude estar ahí. Era una Corte diferente. En este día la Corte es muy diferente. Y si DACA va a la Corte, no tengamos el mismo resultado que tuvimos en el 2019. Ese es el peligro. ¿Quién nos está mandando a la Corte? Texas. El juez de Texas, que es el juez que siempre ha batallado en contra de cualquier progreso inmigrativo. Él es el que siempre está ahí y ahorita estamos en esa batalla viendo si DACA va a ir o no. ¿Qué cosa quiere decir eso? Puede decir que va a terminar DACA, que no se van a renovar los permisos. Hay tantas personas en el programa que están a riesgo en estos momentos y no sabemos qué va a suceder, vamos día a día, pero eso es lo que pasa con DACA, que no es permanente y es de día a día.
Y si acordamos 2017 cuando se demandó el programa DACA, lo paró el gobierno y luego continuó más o menos y todavía seguimos en el más o menos hoy en día, fue de que tardó el proceso como 1 o 2 años para que llegara a la Corte Suprema, ¿no? Fueron 2 años. Entonces, la demanda inicial o cancelación inicial del 2017 llegó a las diferentes cortes y finalmente la Corte Suprema en el 2019.
En noviembre del 2019 estuvimos en la Corte.
Exacto. Y sería algo similar entonces en este proceso si es que esta Corte nos ataca o no, porque todavía ese es cómo trabaja el lado judicial, ¿no? de Estados Unidos. Entonces, ¿qué se puede hacer, Fátima? ¿Cómo podemos apoyar? ¿Cómo nos podemos organizar?
De parte de CHIRLA, desde el año pasado, ¿verdad? Hemos estado batallando para asegurar que el registro, la fecha de registro se cambie, ¿verdad? Para que de ahí pueda incluir no solamente a nosotras, ¿verdad? Pero también a nuestras familias y nuestras comunidades que no califican para DACA. Y hay que seguir haciendo eso, ¿verdad? Como había mencionado, es un año electoral. Es otra oportunidad para seguir echándole ganas para que algo permanente pase este año, entrando para el año que venga, porque como dijo Arely, hay mucho que nos va a preocupar si no tenemos más poder en ese sentido.
Briefly, Arely, your pitch for folks to go out and vote.
You need to go out and vote for whoever is going to really be a champion. We are tired of people telling us what we want to hear and not taking action. We're at a moment where we and our families need action. It's not just about DACA and the DREAM Act. We need relief for the 11 million. And papers is just the beginning of relief. It's really a liberation for our people that have given their lives and their bodies to this country. They need that access to their freedom.
Beautifully said. And with that, también quiero recordarle a los compañeros, a todos los que nos están viendo, que este mes CHIRLA está celebrando el mes de la herencia inmigrante y por favor que nos apoyen a llegar a nuestra meta de recaudar $35,000. Su donación llega muy lejos para seguir esta lucha, para estar en el Congreso, luchando en el Congreso, para estar luchando en las urnas, en todas partes. Entonces, ese regalo de usted nos va a llegar muy, muy lejos. Muchas gracias.
¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos? ¿Quiénes somos?